We are here, WeatherBrains episode number 470 for the 26th of January, 2015. And this is the pre-show,
Right.
That, I don't know if that makes any sense or not. We're going to do a special 30-minute pre-show on the blizzard of 2015. We'll start that in 5 minutes, and then we'll do the regular show in about 30 minutes from now. If you're watching this on YouTube, the replay. So if you came here just for the WeatherBrains weekly show and do not want to hear about the blizzard that's going on in the Northeast, move the slider bar about 30 minutes over and you'll find us. And this pre-show will not be on the produced audio podcast. That's just going to be the regular show there. But since so many people are talking about this big storm, we thought we would talk about it too, because that's what we do.
Why not?
And we have Dr. John Scala, our correspondent. You're the closest guy we have to this thing, John.
I'm actually watching it go by, James. We're kind of in between. It's been kind of a frustrating day. We've had some light snow at times, some moderate snow at times, but I'm just looking off to my east and watching the rest of my family that lives in New Jersey getting pounded by this.
Yeah, just the way it works down here, and I guess it's the same there. In every snow event, some people will be severely disappointed in the amount of snow they get. Others will get more than forecast. It's just the way it works. And where these heavier snow bands set up, you often just don't know until they get on radar. So.
Oh, that's so true. I'm going to try a screen share. See if you can see this. Let's see, will this come up? No, it's down at the bottom though.
It's black. There we go. Yeah, bingo. We got it.
Can you see that?
Oh yeah, that looks good.
Is this awesome? Look at this storm.
Wow. It's sad. You're a weather weenie when you see something like that, and you just almost get woozy looking at it. Wow. Wow.
This is all I've been thinking about since last week. I mean,
this look. I'm a blizzard of '93 survivor. And not many people remember that one, but that was our big one. And where we are down here in the low latitudes, we just don't get them that often. But when I see that type of satellite image, I have flashbacks to the blizzard of '93. Yeah.
What I remember the most about that storm, I was living in Maryland, working at Goddard, NASA Goddard, in fact with Marshall Shepard. What I remember the most about that storm was how low the central pressure was. It went almost over my house. Got down to what, like 961 millibars? I mean, phenomenal.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. We had down here, and again, I'm in Alabama, for those that don't know, we had convective snow. We had winds gusting to almost hurricane force on the ridges, convective snow, and parts of my state had a little over 2 feet. And for Alabama, that's a pretty big storm.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me just say this. I think we have the 3 smartest guys in the universe on the show now. Look who's joined us.
And I'm here, too.
We've got...
Yeah, there you go.
When Rick Smith and Marshall Shepard and John Scala are in the same room, the brain power is just unbelievable here. Wow.
Not enough air.
And we've got Marshall looks like he's in his home studio.
I am in my home dining room. That's where the best lighting is.
Marshall, we were just talking about the '93 superstorm when you and I were working at NASA.
Yeah, I think I had just gotten Goddard.
Yeah. And what I remember about that storm was the amount of sleet. We had thunder sleet with that storm.
Yeah, I was looking at that today too, because that was really my first sort of introduction to that type of snow. I mean, I'm a Georgia boy. We even got some down here though.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. So again, we're going to go ahead and start this ends the pre-show to the pre-show. Now this begins the pre-show. It's 9 o'clock Eastern time. Hello. You can tell it's 9 o'clock because I hear cuckoos.
That's right.
So we're post pre-show.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we're going to do for the next 30 minutes, we are going to discuss the big blizzard that is cranking up in the northeast United States. And the regular WeatherBrains show begins in about 30 minutes, but there's so much interest in this. But again, John, since you're going to be kind of our anchor man here because you're close to the storm, the epicenter up there. So, and again, look, what we're doing here, this is not, for Joe Q Public. This is for weather weenies. So we're going to talk about it from the weather weenie perspective. So Dr. John, give us a weather weenie summary of this thing.
Sure, James. Looks like the center of low pressure right now is about maybe 100 to 200 miles east. Let's call it the Ocean City, Maryland. And right now, the bands are beginning to set up, coming from east to west across Long Island. Let's see if we can. Oh, that's a good image. Okay. So right now, the strongest winds are coming in across, say, Block Island, Long Island, heading towards New York City. I don't know how much snow they've had there, but my guess is 4 to 8 inches so far in the metropolitan area. And some of the forecasts with this storm, you can hear my clock going off again. Some of the forecasts on these numbers, for the snow totals, boggles the mind. Now, the record in New York City is 29.6 inches from the snowstorm of February 11-12, 2006. Now, there have been some of the SREF, some of the plumes, some of the ensembles suggesting that these totals could exceed 30 inches. Now, that's the high end. If you want to go out there, be careful. But this may very well end up in the top 10, maybe even the top 5 all-time snow totals in New York City.
John, I was worried about that a little bit, though. I was worried about that back western edge. I was just in some Twitter conversation with Jim Cantori and a few others. I mean, I was beginning to get a little worried that we might see some Monday morning quarterbacking, that this was hyped a bit too much. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there was definitely when I saw a 20 to 30 inch forecast come out of the Weather Service office a couple of days ago, I thought, that's the high end of the ensembles, and you want to forecast a record? I don't. But right now, in order for that snow to verify in the major metropolitan area, these bands have got to move west about 100 to 150 miles. And if it doesn't, this is a big bust.
Yeah, I've seen. I was talking to a local Met there a few minutes ago, and he said they're anywhere from 4 to 7 inches right now.
Okay, that makes sense.
In New York, so and this thing's still, some of the euro backed off on some of the amounts earlier today. Anyhow, it looked like.
It looked to me like there was a trend a little bit further east to the cyclone in the latest.
Hey, John. Again, since you're kind of close to this, what's your process in forecasting this kind of thing? Kind of run us through how you would. Let's say you're on the air in New York City or Boston, and it's a day or two out. What are the key models that you would use, the techniques you would use in forecasting a storm like this, and then the communication techniques in sharing this with the public?
Oh, yeah, a couple of good questions. I always start with a diagnosis. So what is happening in the atmosphere at the current time? And I use water vapor imagery in the upper air analyses. I start there. I want to know where the key ingredients are that are going to lead to the evolution of this storm. And with this particular event, I was looking out about 48 hours ago, well, 36 hours ago. I was looking at the peak winds at 500 millibars moving. In fact, right across your area, Rick, there was a 100-knot wind at 500 millibars in Norman at 12Z yesterday.
That like a 100-knot wind at the surface at times yesterday.
Yeah. Right, so there's the wind energy, right? So that tells you you've got a deepening upper trough. And the left exit region of that jet moved across Atlanta, right, Marshall? That was in Atlanta last night. It was 99.
I saw that.
So there's the energy that's going to be moving into the base of the trough. And with this particular storm, that 3-4 days ago, it was not deepening like this. It was a much flatter evolution because the upper trough was not amplified. Well, that's what game changer for this storm was the upper trough amplifying and then acquiring a negative tilt, which focuses the cyclogenesis much closer to the east coast. And that's what was responsible for bringing in the heavy snow. So to answer your question, James, I'm looking at the evolution of this storm both from a diagnostic perspective and then looking at the suite of models to give me a sense of the uncertainty. And I think that is one of the key parameters in forecasting for the public is, can I deliver an understanding of the uncertainty with this storm. Because you could easily go 30 inches and you could easily have gone 8 inches with this storm. Where do you want to be?
And the next question is, let's say you get 12 inches, 18 inches, 22. And again, I'm in a southern market, so I can't answer this. Is there a big difference in the impact if you have 15 or 25 inches? What's the difference in, say, a 15-inch snow and a 25-inch snow there?
Well, from a cost perspective, it costs New York City about $1 million per inch.
Really?
To remove the snow. So I think once you get past even 6 to 8 inches, then it just becomes, you're just magnifying the problem. It's already there. It becomes a transportation issue because everybody wants the roads clear to move goods and services, and because we're tied to the almighty car, we want to be able to get on that road as soon as the snow stops. So that's why they have to invest so much in clearing roadways and highways. Everyone wants to get in their car.
Hey, Marshall, what are your thoughts on? First off, on the preparation, the forecasting, the whole communication from the weather enterprise so far.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, James, on that cost issue. I mean, I saw earlier today there were over 3,500 flights canceled, so that is significant impact on the bottom line, not only for airlines, but just because of the transportation industry in general. There's going to not only be those losses here today and tomorrow, but then there's going to be some time to get the system back online in terms of the whole transportation network and arguably the busiest corridor in the U.S. So, I mean, that has all kinds of economic trickle-down effect. The other thing I do worry about a little bit, I mean, I do think the mayor of New York and others have taken this very seriously. I mean, I saw something where some places you can't even buy a cup of coffee in the city of New York, of all places, where the city never sleeps. So there's a lot riding on the line for our community credibility as well, which is always a challenge. We shouldn't have to continually prove ourselves, but we do. The other thing that came up for me today, and I'm saying maybe some of you saw this, Andy Revkin at .Earth blog, he posed 3 questions to several of us out there. I was one of them. Maybe some of you were. And he was saying, what was the problem with the models not really picking up on this until really Saturday or so. I think John talked a little bit about why that is. And the other question he posed is why the Euro model, we always have this Euro versus GFS discussion out there, and why the Euro model does better with these types of snowstorms on average than the GFS does. So those are some interesting questions that I've been kind of dealing with today. I think John touched on one of them. I was mentioning.
I was about to say, how did you answer him? You let Lewis in.
It's out there. It's out there. If you go to Revkin on Twitter. He's got a live sort of blog where he's updating our responses. I gave him a pretty thorough response. Cliff Mask gave him one. A few others did as well. I'll try to share that when we're online. But on the first one, I said, I think there were hints of something brewing even before Saturday. But as John mentioned, I don't think there was consensus. So I think people were hedging a little bit. And then the other problem that I threw into the mix here is, with all the, hype and social media-ology out there, I think, as an enterprise, I think we're rightfully a bit more cautious about getting too much ahead of consensus there, when we see these types of things. So I think that was at play. But on the Euro GFS thing, I went into my usual spiel, which is, look, the Euro uses 4-dimensional data assimilation. European Center does. We use 3D, and so they're assimilating model information as it comes in. That's why they tend to do a lot better than we do in some cases. But the real question, some of the things that John was just talking about, even with the models, are we assimilating the right things into these models? Do we have the fidelity to really capture some of these subtle processes that we may be missing in a storm like this? So I've got a pretty robust answer. I'll see if I can tweet it and tag WeatherBrains here in a second.
Cool. And again, Bill Murray's joined us. Bill, where are you? You are at home base. Where are you this week? And Bill, you were muted. You were unmute there.
You muted me, James. Sorry about that. I thought you muted me. Yeah, I'm home tonight, James. And the thing that's interesting to me is with this disparity between the models. There's an interesting book reviewed, Marshall, in the Bulletin of the AMS this month about an author who has written a book about the difference between forecasting and predicting. And I think here we're talking about predictions, coming up with an outcome when we should be worrying about forecasts, which is a range of outcomes that could happen. And how do we get to that? So I'm really excited about reaching out to that author and getting them to be on the show, because I think this is an important paradox that sort of troubles all of us in what we're doing.
Yeah. But I would say one of the things, and I think Brad Panovich mentioned this earlier today. There's a lot of memes going around already with this storm with the Euro versus GFS. But the reality is, in this particular storm, I think the Euro was only about 6 hours ahead of GFS and sort of picking up on some things. And the reality is, before about Saturday, neither one of them had much there. So I think that people kind of jumped on this again, the whole Euro GFS. But I think they were pretty much in the same class this time on this particular storm.
Yeah, this was the initial forecast from the storm. We're focusing on the Alberta Clipper and not on a coastal event.
Right.
Yeah, that's how this forecast has changed.
Yeah, I mean, even down here we were talking about that Clipper and the possibility. In fact, even as we speak, I mean, I don't know, James, if you're picking that up, but I'm seeing some snow up in northwest Georgia, even creeping down in the parts of Cherokee County, Canton, Georgia, northern Atlanta suburbs, where I grew up. And that was always the story that we were hearing, this Clipper may dive south. But, yeah, this thing just kind of came out of nowhere.
So in this situation, and I'll ask Dr. Scollin especially, being in the Northeast, how important is that blocking high in, getting one of these really big snowstorm situations, John?
Oh, it's huge, Bill, because that's the cold air reservoir that you're going to be advecting the storm into, and that's how you maintain that cold column and get the cold air. In fact, the big snowstorms historically have had that Canadian high, like a 1034 or greater, ahead of it. This storm is doing something different because it's acquiring such a strong negative tilt and then closing off near Montauk in Long Island. It's going to be slowing its forward progress. So that's how it's going to generate the heavy snow. Repeated banding.
What's the rule of thumb, in terms of geographic points on either the Cape or Montauk, of when it's going to be a big storm for New York City or for Boston or whatever? Yeah,
you've heard the term the benchmark, the 3070 benchmark? I think that's what it is. I can't remember exactly, but it's the position of that high off to the northeast that you want that in place when you bring in the storm from the south along the coast. This is an oddity. This is not, if you look back at the historical snowfalls in the Northeast, they are typically coastal cyclones moving off of Cape Hatteras and then running right along the coast, moving up towards New England, not evolving the way this did, which was initially a clipper, which then amplified over the eastern third of the United States and is essentially at this hour digging a hole off the East Coast.
Hey, John, what is the general skill set in forecasting these for New York City and Boston?
I think this particular forecast has really shown a tremendous amount of disparity. I think the plumes, the SREF plumes, are a good example of that. The QPF, that was a difficult forecast early on in assessing what the QPF is going to be with this storm. And I saw numbers anywhere from 1.5 inches to 3.5 inches. Well, that could be an enormous amount of snow. A great disparity in that sense. And Marshall actually hinted one of the important characters with the storm is identifying where the mesoscale banding will be and then how far west those bands will develop, north and west. So there's always going to be some uncertainty with an East Coast storm based on the track and the temperature. But with this storm, also its slow forward progress is going to weigh in on how much snow falls.
Hey, but Marshall Shepard, again, for the Weather Enterprise, how would you give them a grade so far in handling this the last 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, that's a tough question, James. Like I said, I think that I think all of the models were in the same boat on this thing. So I think it really illustrates that even as good as we think we are with the models, there's still some challenges in what we can resolve. One of the other things I was going to say, and I'll get back to your question, this is one of the first major storms where we've got the GFS with the upgraded spatial resolution.
Absolutely.
So to see just sort of a post-analysis of whether this increased resolution matters at all. I'm sure they'll do some experiments and degrade that, the resolution back to what it was to kind of see if it had an impact, or if they don't do that, I certainly hope they do that. I think that would be a good idea. That's from a weather enterprise standpoint. There's this thing called the Forecast Improvement Group, or FIG, within the AMS's Weather Climate Enterprise. Folks like Louis Uccellini, Betsy Weatherhead, and Barry Meyer. A lot of folks are involved in that, and their whole goal is to try to evaluate exactly these types of situations, James. It's actually one of the success stories of our enterprise, this notion of this weather climate enterprise, bringing together people that frankly didn't used to talk to each other in this community. The private industry, the weather service, these folks used to be at odds. Now they're talking to each other and trying to improve our forecast ability. So I think they'll look back at the storm, try to evaluate some of those very things I just mentioned. I mean, the messaging to me is still a challenge. I mean, I'm probably just as guilty as anybody a little bit. But man, I look out there on Twitter. You've got every single Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Jane, and Joe, and everyone posting information. Everybody's got their own website, and I guess that's a good thing. But boy, there's a lot of information overload out there too. So that's not really an enterprise issue, but it's just something that I'm continually not concerned about, because you can't control it. But there's a lot of messaging out there, and in a rapidly evolving situations, I think it's good. But I think it can also be confusing when you've got different messages out there too.
Hey, Marshall, this is Kevin. On that point, let me interrupt you there for a second, because I get the sense, and tell me if you see this as well, that especially this time on the part of the quote-unquote professionals, and I'm pointing particularly at television, on social media there seems to be this trend toward, okay, I can put this particular thing on social media even though I would never say it on television. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think a word that I've used, and I've heard it used before, is, I mean, the social media is still a bit more of a wild, wild west, even for the professional community. I think that, there is a bit more freedom to sort of put that, statement out there, or put something out there that you wouldn't have to run through a station manager or general manager. There's less of a filter, I think, is what you're saying, Kevin, and I would agree with that. And I've noticed that as well. And like I said, I try to be careful about the things that I put out there, but I think that in general, man, there is that driving desire to get something out there that's hot and hot off the presses. And I think this is, I don't think this is social media. I think media in general, even back in the old days, press and print and TV, you wanted to be first. You wanted to break the news first, and I think that's on that's on steroids a little bit in terms of social media. People want to get that hot new model run out there. People want to get that nice new image from the latest satellite, as you're showing some right now. And so, I think it's a net good thing, but, if you're just trying to filter information out there, it can be tough. I mean, I tweeted something today, and I said, man, I mean, I went to the Weather Prediction Center site, National Weather Service. They only have 7,000 followers. The National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center, and there's some less, I would say generously, less credible sites out there that have 3 or 4 times that many followers out there. So
does this trend concern you, though? Because I feel like we're getting into this, things don't change in big giant leaps usually. It's little pieces at a time. And so we're now at the point where the broadcasters say, oh, well, this little thing doesn't hurt to go this far. But after you've taken 10 or 20 or 30 of those little steps, you end up in a pretty bad position.
Yeah, and I think hopefully this NWA seal, or maybe if AMS goes that way, I think it may help to corral some of that, because if people feel, if the seal catches on, and candidly, and I'm just going to speak candidly, I'm not sure how much it is catching on right now, the digital seal. I think there was some initial excitement about it, but from what I understand, there hasn't been much activity beyond the first seal holder, digital seal holders. But if it does catch on, I think that people will be cognizant of what they're doing in the same way that they're cognizant of wanting to maintain their broadcast seals. I mean, there is some integrity that these seals carry with them.
Yeah, I'm kind of afraid. I like the concept behind that, the digital seals, but I fear that the horse is out of the barn and that people are not going to be able to use that in the way that we did way back in the day and have it take any effect.
That's exactly why AMS has been slow to move on it. I mean, AMS can be slow to move on things anyhow, but we've been a bit hesitant on that for the very reasons that you mentioned, Kevin. We actually talked to Jay Trebek, who kind of heads up the Professional Affairs Commission at AMS, and he talked to colleagues in the field, and they're like, "Look, this thing's out of the barn now," and there's just some hesitancy. We're still looking at it. It's not that we're not looking at it, but I think for the reasons you just mentioned, we're not jumping on it right away either.
Yeah. James?
Hey, let me just throw this out. How do you guys think the politicians have done with this so far? I'm not looking for digs here, but generally speaking, the governors, the mayors, how would you grade them?
They're pretty quick to throw out the big numbers and also the big titles, I guess you might say. Words like historic, or at least I haven't seen Armageddon or biblical.
I did see Armageddon earlier today.
Oh, you did?
I agree. I've seen Snowmageddon a couple of times.
Yeah.
I saw USA Today somewhere's headline, I guess it was online somewhere, said a tidal wave of snow.
Oh.
I heard that not too long ago on one of the national channels too. They said a local forecaster was saying that.
Well, the Weather Service has pulled out the
Arctic tornadoes.
Hey, go ahead, Rick. What'd you say?
Well, the Weather Service has pulled out the big, kind of broken the glass and has pulled out the big scary words for this one too: crippling, historic, life-threatening. I don't know how much stronger you can get with wording than that from the Boston office and the New York City office. And I know, like probably most meteorologists around the country, I was watching NBC Nightly News tonight, and you see all the responses going on. People are doing exactly, in most cases, what we want them to do if we have high confidence that something's going to happen. Airlines are shutting down. Marshall mentioned it earlier, the economic impact. All the Broadway shows, just that alone tonight, there's no Broadway, there's no trains, just the huge economic impact, and you're just thinking, you obviously don't want anything bad to happen, but if you pull out all the stops like that with that wording, you hope that it pays off.
That it lives up to its advanced billing, because you've had political careers ended over snowstorms, like the Lindsay snowstorm in February of '69.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
And you hope, and I imagine this is really a concern with the Weather Service. I mean, you hope it doesn't become commonplace or crying wolf, because you remember back, which tropical system was it in southeast Texas where there was the life-threatening, and the whole enterprise just gasped.
Allison.
Was that Allison?
Rita or?
It was after Allison. I can't remember which one, but it was the one where that very bold statement came out.
Well, it was Ike. There was a statement made that if you do not evacuate, you will die. That was actually in a Weather Service forecast.
Right, and everybody gasped in the Weather Enterprise going, wow, look what the Weather Service did. But now, if you keep doing that without really being sure before you do it, you gotta measure those things very, very carefully. That's tough for the Weather Service, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I'm not being critical, saying that those offices did the right thing or wrong thing. We won't know until Wednesday, sure. I guess. But that's speaking from a Weather Service perspective. You kind of hold back on those. You have those in reserve. Those are your silver bullets, and when you break that glass and pull those out, it's a big deal.
Right.
It seems to me that the Weather Service in Boston really started hitting this thing hard Sunday morning, and that's when all of these alarms started going off. And I guess that's enough notice. See, I think most people know this is happening. I think most people understand the transportation is shut down. And to me, it seems like most parties involved have done a pretty good job. Wouldn't you say so?
Oh, yeah. If you look at the prospects for 40-plus mile-per-hour winds with low visibility and blowing snow, that's a recipe, right, for a blizzard, and you should have those statements out there. That is a life-threatening situation.
Yeah, I'm a little. From the sort of flip side of your question, James, I'm still a little concerned about tomorrow, because I still feel like there's a possibility that the New York City area may be a bit underwhelmed compared to what some of the numbers are initially looking like. And I think the mayor, de Blasio, and others have taken some fairly extraordinary steps there in New York City. And I do fear a little Tuesday morning quarterbacking, even if they only get 12 feet or 15. But, I think it still remains to be seen. But again, if these bands, as we've talked about earlier, and John and I mentioned, if they don't move further west, there's a chance that, we might only see about 10 inches there, or 8 inches. Who knows?
But I'm beginning to think this is true for every part of the country when it comes to snow. And Rick, you put out that amazing, what was that thing, Oklahomans and snow? Don't you think that's like universal? That was amazing. I don't know where you got that, but that was good.
Well, I need to re-release that with Oklahoma out, because I saw it, hey, Kentucky too, hey, Alabama too, hey, Texas too, and I think it is universal, and it's something I wrote a few, back at the beginning of winter, and you see forecasters everywhere going, well, I've never worked anywhere where it's harder to forecast snow, and it's been that way everywhere I've ever lived, and I'm sure most of you who have lived more places can, I don't think it's easy anywhere. I haven't seen a place yet where it's easy to forecast snow. Certainly not down here where Kevin and I are.
Yeah,
I saw the greatest line go by somewhere in the back channels where people were talking about posting totals, and the question was, do you post? There was some question about totals, and it was two. Somebody said put 2 to 3, but don't put inches or feet, and let just people figure it out.
But and for those, and again, this is not part of our audio show. This is just for those watching by video. So I've thrown it up on the screen. 10 things every Oklahoman should know about winter weather forecasts. And this is fantastic, Rick. You ought to copyright this thing and sell it. I didn't know that you wrote this. This is great.
Yeah, it's just from experience here. Some storms last year. The first one. People get mad if people are passionate about their snow, and if they don't get it or get as much as they think they should have gotten, or that they thought they heard that you said they were going to get, then it's a big deal. They'll hold a grudge against you for that. So people think, they have these misconceptions about how good we are and about how precise we can be, and that's just a collection of some thoughts I had, and I've got another one ready for tornado season here. So.
Oh, good. Well, but
We'll sell them as a 2-for-1 package.
Exactly. But I love the last one. It says having too much snow forecast information can be confusing. Anyone can post an image of a computer model snow forecast that doesn't make it accurate or reliable. Social media has made it too easy to share this kind of information. Choose your information sources wisely, and don't blindly share forecasts with big numbers. Those are wise words.
Those are great words, Rick. And I'm quite amazed, Rick. I didn't pay as much attention to central or western Oklahoma when I was in Dallas, but I'm amazed at the difference. Just a 2-hour drive northwest of Dallas has changed my perspective, being in Wichita Falls and also now paying more attention to Oklahoma. And this last event we had, looking at the Panhandle a little bit too. And it seems to me that one of the critical things, and you tell me from your experience, is something that's one of the harder things to find, especially in a sparse upper air network, is where the upper boundaries end up being, like an 850 front or something like that. Is that right?
Oh yeah. I think that's very accurate.
And those end up being fairly thin too, which can really mess with a forecast.
Oh yeah.
A large band is only 20, 30, 40 miles wide, but then you move the placement of that by 10 or 20 miles, you're really talking a hard totals forecast.
Oh, it's like shooting. It's an amazingly complex process.
Okay. I feel better now, Rick. Thanks.
Hey, we got to start the actual show here. Again, we've been doing a 30-minute just discussion on the storm. And we'll keep talking about it during, the WeatherBrains, the audio podcast we're going to start here in just a second. Let me confirm this with John or Marshall, or maybe one of you two know. According to what I just saw here, this is the first time in history that the subways in New York City have been shut down because of snow. Is that true?
Wow.
I thought I saw something earlier, a tweet to that effect too, James, and that's kind of what I've been alluding to with those types of measures, I know there's some other measures that I felt were fairly extraordinary. So that's exactly what I've been alluding to here. If this thing even remotely doesn't pan out in the eyes of the New Yorkers, I think it's going to pan out further up the coast, definitely, in terms of 2-footer and more. Yeah. But I think that there could be this sort of tipping point that if it doesn't exceed, I think that there will be some that may say, well, what was that about? Why did the subways close?
Yeah, and again, look, inevitably some of the weather forecasters, meteorologists involved in this will be heroes on Wednesday. Some are going to be dealing with haters because they blew a forecast. It's just the way it works. I mean, and I'll say this, where I am, in any snow event, for some people you're going to be right, for some people you're going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. And I agree, Marshall. I think the big question is New York City. Boston, I think everybody's pretty confident that they're going to be slammed.
Yeah, sure.
But New York City, Hartford, that's more of a question mark. So, but again, we're going to continue this conversation here. But we got Aubrey back. We're going to give Aubrey 8 hours for email this week because we have a stack like that big. But we got everybody. I think all of our guests are here.
Just leave the show on overnight, and Aubrey can do the email after the 10 o'clock news.
Yeah, there you go. I think we just ought to leave this stream up for the next 24 hours, and we can do storm coverage and email. Intertwine the two together.
It's Aubrey and the Times Square Tower Cam.
This should be interesting. I did daybreak this morning, so I've had like 3.5 hours of sleep. So.
Oh, good. Welcome to my
That'll
world.
make it even more fun.
But exactly, it's like James Span's schedule.
All right, so here we go. Let's start this show. And again, for those watching on cable television, you know the deal. And if you're watching on YouTube, this has been a 30-minute pre-show special. We actually have a recorded audio production that we will do, which we're going to start right now. So
you know what? Before you go, though,
yes,
this is even better because it means we're actually starting the show on time.
Yeah, that is very rare for this group. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! Time to talk little weather, why not? The middle of winter. This is WeatherBrains episode number 470 for the 26th of January, 2015. It's cold. We have a blizzard in the northeast United States as we do this show. We'll be talking about that. But we got a big group of very smart people on here. And let me first off point out we've got Brian Peters that is out. Brian is working the early morning shift. Aubrey, you feel that pain, right?
I do. I feel that pain. It's this is the second Monday in a row I think I've done this shift, and yes, not pretty.
I will say the morning television shift.
The hair. I mean, can you see it? It's
Aubrey, for some of us that don't have hair, any hair looks good. Okay, so I mean, you're looking good.
Grizzled and frazzled.
But anyway, Brian is working the early morning shift, and I think that is the nastiest shift. I know a lot of weather service people might argue with that. They might say midnights is the worst shift, but that morning television thing, it's a nightmare. You have to get up at like 1:30 or 2, and you got to be down there by like 3 or 3:30 because these newscasts are coming on at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
sleeping in at 3:30.
Well, so Aubrey, tell us about your day today. When did you wake up? When did you go in?
I woke up at 1:30, and I was in by 2:45. And by waking up at 1:30, I mean I hit the snooze, rolled out of bed by like 1:45-ish. The dog got up. I went to the bathroom to go grab all of my things, and I come out of the bathroom, and the dog is like on the carpet. She's just laying there. She doesn't know what to do. So, and then I get ready and try to, shower and clean up and look halfway presentable.
And so what time do you go on the air? 4 or
5?
5. Okay, well, okay.
5.
So
I do the 24/7 channel at 4 is when I do those recordings. I do radio, and then I get ready finish getting ready for the show. The show is 5 to 7. And then we have another like 8 hours of cut-ins.
Nasty stuff. Well, we're glad you're here. You've been out for a while. You're a trooper to stay up late.
I'm sorry.
You're a big trooper to stay up late tonight, so thank you. We've got Dr. John Scala in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, who is on the edge of a blizzard. Dr. John.
In between, James, watching, there's actually a weak trough to our west, so it's been producing kind of a light to moderate snow all day long across the Laurels, out to the west, up towards Bradford and Altoona. Here in Lancaster, we had a couple of periods of moderate snow today, but we have been watching all the action off to the east, as we've been discussing.
Yeah, and again, we have a lot to talk about with the blizzard. In fact, for those listening to the audio version of the show, we did a 30-minute blizzard discussion on the YouTube video side of this. So if you want to watch that or listen to that, you can go back and check out the YouTube replay. Kevin Selly is not dealing with a blizzard tonight. We know that.
No, we're dealing with the heat. We were 73 in Wichita Falls today, and probably touch 80 by Wednesday before the next cold front comes through, James.
I notice you're wearing your tank top and flip-flops, so I figured it's pretty warm out there.
Yeah, my office is in the studio, so I still will. And of course, it's wintertime, so when the sun goes down, you plummet. But I still got a nice. Tracy got this for me for the video viewers. Everybody here at the TV station has logo wear, and I haven't been here long enough to have any yet. So Tracy was nice enough to find out who does the embroidery for everybody, and went out and got me a nice fleece jacket and had the Channel 3 logo put on there, and that was a Christmas gift, which I really appreciate because it's cold in the studio.
It's always cold in the studio.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of logo wear, and Aubrey, this could complete Aubrey's ensemble. Did you have the hoodie, Aubrey, or do you have just the T-shirt? You're muted.
Muted.
Hang on. I have just the T-shirt. This is the Yukon hoodie.
Okay.
In support of all my Connecticut people who are about to get buried.
Well, Aubrey and I have been talking about, maybe we need another T-shirt run and talking about a new logo. But I punched up our website, which is teespring.com/weatherbrains, where we sold 2 rounds of them. But we only need 6 more to have another run. I think we only need to get to like 20. But apparently people have gone back in for a 3rd round of the original WeatherBrains T-shirt and hoodie. So if we get 6 more, what we can do is get another run of these, and then in the springtime we'll come up with a new design for something else. But I looked the other day, and because of everybody's generosity who bought these things, we raised almost $650 that we're going to use. We're going to wait for something big like this storm or some other thing, and we'll find a good place to put that money on behalf of everybody, like the Red Cross or somebody that needs it. But we can do another round of this in the spring. But if you want the original WeatherBrains T-shirt or hoodie, and the T-shirt's only $20, we just need 6 more people to go to Teespring, and that's T-E-E, spring.com/weatherbrains, and we can have one more run, James.
And I have to say, the T-shirt is actually very, very comfortable. It's not like a cheap T-shirt. It's very soft, very comfortable. Not a pitch girl here, but it's actually very nice to wear.
And as we determined earlier, it has good placement of the blob.
The blobs are fantastic.
Oh, brother.
You can't go wrong with a blob placement.
I have to go do some TV. I'll be back.
Okay. No, but anyway.
I've been up for like 28 hours, so I'm whatever. You're
yeah. But anyway, for those watching, you can see that, and I have the shirt, and it is very good. Nate Johnson is in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's bending over, getting a cheer wine, right?
Ruh-roh.
Hello, Nate.
Oh.
Uh-oh, Nate can't hear us.
No.
He's gone to his test pattern. Wow.
I have a question for Nate about Cheerwine too, James, when we get him on here, because I've got a case of Cheerwine in the pantry, and I need to ask him a question.
Well, anyway, Bill Murray, bring in our
like
guest. We got some very important people here, so bring them in. Show belongs to you.
Well, of course, already tonight we've got the esteemed Dr. Marshall Shepard with us. He is, of course, the host of Weather Geeks on the Weather Channel. Marshall, it's great to have you on the show tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bill.
Well,
I have to say, let me jump on that. I actually am still, I still wear the badge of Professor at UGA first. I'm moonlighting.
Well, of course, of course. You have so many different jobs and titles, Marshall. Former president of the AMS and all these other things, so I just went the easy route. And
Hey, Marshall, you hurt Dr. John's feeling when you bumped his Weather Geeks program.
Yeah, what happened there? I went to my DVR Sunday afternoon, expected to see that. What was the deal?
Well, last week there was the big sort of what some people call flash freeze event, whatever that is.
Yeah, right.
Just a freezing rain event, an icing event. But so that was sort of happening in real time, so we had to cover that. But we were back on this yesterday had a good show, and we got a good show coming up this Sunday, actually, in honor of Black History Month.
Good. Well, always enjoy Weather Geeks every week. Always a hit on my DVR. So it's nice to have you with us, Dr. Shepard.
Thank you for having me.
And I told you in Phoenix, you've got a standing invitation anytime you want.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, let me know.
Just tweet out that you're going to be on, and we'll call you.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I always have a few things to say.
But we've got a special guest WeatherBrain tonight, and he's a suggestion of a listener, Barry, in Rochester, Minnesota, not New York, where the Mayo Clinic is located. John Wetter is the technical services manager with the Hopkins, Minnesota Public School System. And John, we welcome you to the show tonight.
Thank you, Bill. Great to be on.
Now, we're expecting Tom Holquist to join us. Now, he's the Sioux at Chanhassen, right, Tom?
Yeah, he is. Yep. I just was trying to get a hold of him a minute ago. I know he had something come up here this evening that he wasn't sure what his availability was going to happen here last second.
He watched the first 30 minutes and he immediately ran.
Other way.
Ran far away. Yeah.
I'm out.
you get to totally speak on his behalf, so anything you say will not be held against you tonight, John.
Excellent.
We're excited that you're here. And I have to ask this question of Nate while we've got him. Nate, can you hear me?
I can. Can you
Nate,
hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Nate, I've got a case of Cheerwine in my pantry, and since someone referred to you having Cheerwine there tonight, when I pop these cans of Cheerwine, they always spew. Is something wrong with them, or is it an altitude thing?
I think the Cheerwine is so desperate to get in your mouth, it's just trying to jump out of the can.
Okay, all right. We're having a little science experiment here at the house because every time we open one, it spews everywhere.
I think what happened was they got filled inside, and you're trying to open them outside, and it deflates the can and just.
So this is like Cheerwine Gate.
Have you tried tapping the top a little bit? Kind of giving it a little.
Just
Bill, could you
show
show us?
title in there somewhere, but I can't find it for the life of me.
Yeah,
Could you
I'll
demo
go get one in a
it
minute
live
and shake
on
it up,
there?
and we'll
Just
see how it
tap
works.
the top gently.
Oh, that's what does it, huh? Okay, I'm going to try that during the recorded segments and report back after that. But anyway, thank you for clearing that up, Nate.
You're quite welcome, and enjoy.
And I have no idea what you just wrote in there in the chat, Nate.
I don't either. I've been trying to understand that.
I'll explain.
I see what you did there. Yes, I got it. I got it. I'm impressed. Okay, good. All right. Well, anyway, back to the show. But
I got the first part, I guess.
I see what you did there. Yeah, I see what you did there. That's pretty good. So bring us up to date on what we're focusing on the Northeast. What's winter been like in Minnesota this year, John?
Well, after last year, I mean, this year's been kind of a lame winter, actually. We had a little bit of a cold spell there, actually, right around the holidays. But besides that, it's been a warm year. I mean, right now it's 39 degrees out right now, and we saw it was blue skies today and hardly any snow on the ground at all. So. Take this winter compared to the last couple winters where we were up in the higher percentiles on our season totals on snow, and so far knock on wood this winter has been pretty calm, both from the amount of snow that we've gotten as well as the temperatures. So not much happening this year, especially in comparison to last year.
So it's like summer.
Yeah, really.
Just like summer, exactly.
It's like May. But, John, you mentioned in your bio that your school system is a torchlight district. Now, is that a figurative term or a literal term?
That's actually
Is he on fire? Then it's not.
fire. Well, that's actually an award from the state that our school district received here several years ago, and so it's something talking about how the school district were a very progressive technology use school district, with a one-to-one program. Every student in our junior highs, grade 6 on up, has an iPad. And so that's how curriculum is being delivered in our school district, is through electronic means. And so it's really the kind of leading the way. We try to really be progressive about how we're using technology and, telling people, it's not about the technology, it's about what you're doing with it instructionally and working with students. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Now, your job as a technical services manager, talk about what that entails day
Yeah.
to day. I guess you maintain a lot of iPads, huh?
Yes, a lot of iPads. Basically, I'm the person in charge of all the operations for our infrastructure. Hopkins School District, we're a suburb of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis area. We have about 7,200 students, about 1,500 staff. And so you think about all of the technology that goes along with that, including the infrastructure to support it. So all of that is under my umbrella of what I'm responsible for.
So talk about how you found a way to get weather into this job. This sounds like the perfect marriage for a weather nerd who takes his job and finds a way to get weather into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple years ago, we did a fairly significant infrastructure investment in really supporting to become, have backup systems in place and kind of a disaster recovery plan for a good-sized school district. We thought that was necessary to do, and so as part of that, we have a warm standby data center that's off-premise from our main school buildings. And as part of that, what I decided, be something to do. One good thing is to make sure that your backup systems always have some load on them. So should you ever need to use them, they're going to work. And I thought, what a great way to keep those systems having something to do than to run some numerical weather prediction. So that's where I work together with Tom Hultquist, who's the Science and Operations Officer at the National Weather Service out at Chanhassen here, and is also working on some PhD work at the University of Minnesota, working on some climate work there. And so we decided to work together on that and come up with what we call the HopWRF weather model. And so it's an ensemble model that we run at the Hopkins Public School District in our data center, our disaster recovery data center. And so we run a 4-kilometer model over the upper Midwest here, and with quite a few products, we really listen quite a bit to the folks who are using the data and what they want to see. And so that's how we've been able to kind of meld everything together here, get some weather in there, and they're using the weather in the classrooms as well in our junior high schools. We've formatted the site in such a way that it works well to fit an iPad screen, and so they're using that, and weather is one of the standards in the science curriculum for the state of Minnesota, so we're able to tie that in with that as well, along with just from the main pieces of transportation. With the school district, it was huge looking back here, a week or two ago with in the Washington, D.C. area, and all the school buses that got stranded, with the ice and everything else that started happening. And so transportation is huge for school districts. And for us, the HopWRF and, myself with a meteorology background, we thought it all works together. And it's been part of what we've also worked to accomplish, with some of that data of working with superintendents, working with the National Weather Service in Chanhassen, and Dan Luna, who's the meteorologist in charge out there, to help when Hopkins is now the first weather-ready school district in the state of Minnesota as well.
So in that regard, John, to take what Nate said a minute ago, I see what you did there. I thought that it meant that the wharf you had hopped around in different locations, and you're doing that tonight in the Northeast. We want to get your take on the snowstorm, but it actually stands for your school system, I suppose.
Yeah, yep. It actually has ended up being all kinds of meetings there. Originally the HOP meant for Hopkins is the Hopkins School District WRF, Weather Research and Forecasting Model. So that was the original name for it, and I guess it was a convenient takeoff on that to then be able to hop, in air quotes, around to significant weather events. Like tonight we are in the Northeast watching the storm system unfold out there and see what the numbers are starting to come in as, and we've hopped to several other districts. You know, the Snow Jam last year down in the Atlanta area, we had relocated for that event as well. We relocated for some of the severe weather events in the Southern Plains. But all of that is really based on our home domain here in the Upper Midwest being quiet. You know, we don't want to abandon any of the forecasters who are using our data here in the home domain. So as we've met with quite a bit of success, you know, we're very happy with how things have gone with it, and that we see a lot of use both from the Weather Service as well as private forecasters here in our home domain of the Upper Midwest.
So talk about what it took technologically to run this model, to bring it in house and make it work and all those good things. You know, what sort of tell us how the sausage was made, John.
Well, one of the big things, and the reason why we can run it, whereas they struggle running some of the in-house models at the Weather Service offices, is really due to bandwidth. We have quite a bit of bandwidth to play with at Hopkins, being on as part of a metro-wide fiber network. So we actually have access to internet too and everything else to get the really high bandwidth, internet connections ready to go. So that's one of the big pieces. But then it's also the configuration of it. You know, we're running it on 2 servers, so a total of, we get into all the numbers here. We're running it on, right now we're running on 28 cores, and that's of the latest Intel processors. So 28 cores, we divide that up and get 4 ensemble members out of it. We thought it was really important to run an ensemble. That's something that's not really happening a whole lot, down at the high resolution models, the convective allowing models. We're not seeing a whole lot of ensembles down at those scales. So for us, we really wanted to focus more on that ensemble piece, and really look at the probabilistic products, the ensemble mean products, try to get the conversation going more about that. We saw now the HER is finally gone to be operational, and then as that goes forward to become the HER-E, the HER ensemble, hopefully we'll see the progress, the technological march of the models here make us obsolete, and we'll figure out something new to do. But in the meantime, really seeing the high resolution cams, I think, is an important thing that we're doing for the area.
So talk for a second, John, for some of our audience about exactly what you mean when you say, you're producing an ensemble model forecast. Talk about what that means and difference to a deterministic model, or what you guys are doing with that.
Yeah, so the deterministic model is, I guess, probably what a lot of people just think of, whether we're talking the Euro, the GFS, or the NAM, or the HER. There's a lot of people think of the run, even though many of those actually are ensembles. People kind of think of that as the run. It's the Euro or the GFS, when really there's numerous ensembles. So it's basically that version of the model with then either initial conditions tweaked a little bit, or using slightly different physics packages so that it handles, land atmosphere interface different. It handles, if it's a global model, it handles the ocean sea surface temperatures differently. It handles some of those, it handles the radiation off of the ground differently. It has a lot of different tweaks in there that you're trying to marry together for unique solutions. I guess if there was a single model that was the best model, be a lot of meteorologists without jobs. Well. So really that's where we look at, look at these ensembles so we can say what makes sense, given the current system and what's unfolding, assimilating that data and then running it through all of these different physics packages, talking about different things that handle different things about the atmosphere better than others, and when you can find a middle ground between all of those different ensembles or separate models, I think that's where you can really get a better gauge of uncertainty when it comes to the forecasts, and really, you're hopefully get a little bit better skill at the end.
And I just want to go amen to that. We've been trying to talk ensembles here at WRAL for years. Greg Fischel, our chief med, has been a big believer in this approach for a long time and is trying desperately to convince other people in the broadcast industry of the value. And I think this snowstorm, not the one that's hitting now, but one that's been forecast off and on by the European, which everybody says, oh, the European's great, it's the wonderful model, and it's always right. Well, we had someone not in our market post a snowfall total map from the European deterministic run, the operational European, that had us getting like 1.5 feet of snow here in Raleigh. And every now and again it does that from time to time. A couple of runs before that weren't giving us anything. A couple of runs after that weren't giving us anything. But we picked that one run and blow it out, and it's gotten a gazillion shares. And I've had to answer could this possibly be real? And I'm trying not to call anybody out here. Like,
oh, go ahead.
No, but if this keeps happening, we're start naming names, because it's irresponsible to take a single model run and throw it out there like, oh, here's what the European says, when in fact the European ensemble has been extremely consistent at not giving us a significant snowstorm. We're talking, a little bit of snow this weekend, but nothing like we're less than an inch. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that would fall, melt, and be gone without causing any problems. But if I've had to answer, just sitting here on Twitter, I've had to answer this twice, including somebody who asked our local school system about it, and they said, hey, we're deferring to the weather people that we trust here, the local guys, as opposed to somebody from out of market. So bless you for pushing the ensemble stuff. We really, especially for the medium range stuff, once you get out, 2-3 days, this is a fantastic approach, and I think we need to be looking at not only doing it more, but finding ways to get this information to people the way they live their lives. You get it to them on TV, find a way to get into the apps and that sort of thing. But it starts with generating the data and starting to evaluate the products, and I just congratulate you for taking that approach.
Hey, could I quickly follow up on Nate's comment there, because it is one of the most frustrating things for me, just to follow up on Nate. There are a lot of people out there that talk about the Euro and GFS and the Euro being better, and I think it points out something that Nate just said. Half the people that are talking about the Euro have no idea why they think it's better. They just, they don't even know it uses 4-dimensional data assimilation versus the GFS maybe using a 3-dimensional data assimilation. They don't know anything about ensembling. So,
but Marshall, don't tell them that. You just told them all the secrets. Come on now.
Yeah, I want to start a movement right here on WeatherBrains right now. If you post any meme or post anything sort of saying that the Euro is better, you've got to at least say a little bit about why it's better. I think we need a little online MOOC course or whatever those things are. MOOC, what do they call them?
Yeah, exactly.
Podcast, whatever they're called, just some modeling basics, because you got a lot of people throwing around stuff loosely about Euro and GFS and have no idea even how they work. Now, I think that's important, because I think I'm seeing a lot of what Nate just complained about as well. People throwing around one single run, deterministic run versus the ensemble. People not understanding that European models assimilating much of our U.S. satellite data in, and if any of that data goes out or drops out, they become ordinary very quickly. So that's something that I've been dealing with quite a lot in my feed as well.
James, can you ring the bell on that? I think we need a bell ring.
Hang on, here it comes right now.
And this fall, you saw a marked reduction in the skill of the models when the satellite data did become unavailable there for that 1 week.
And so that's leading to the Model Palooza show that will be coming up in just a few weeks. So we've got several modeling experts in our brainstorm doc right now for future guests, and we'll make that happen. So if you have a favorite model expert you want to throw out there, a panel, throw it out, and listeners too, as we plan that show. But John, go back for just a second. You talked about the ensemble part, but you mentioned also in some of the advanced information on the model that you run a time shift program. What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's something interesting what we're trying to do. We have another model that we're running. This one is a deterministic model also that we're running, and that's a model that we call it the time shift. So it's the Hopworth time shift. It uses the same setup as member 1 of our ensemble, and what it does is that one is actually user selectable by the lead forecaster at the National Weather Service in Chanhassen, that they can set the start time for that model anywhere from 12 hours all the way out to 120 hours as the start time in a 36-hour model run from that point. So the forecasters can pick a time, anytime in the next few days that they want to run a high-resolution run for, and that will shift the time that the 4-kilometer run initializes at. So something that we give the forecasters the ability to say, hey, here's a system that we want to take a closer look at coming up here in the next couple days, and gives them, right at that spot at the next initialization time for the model, they get a 4-kilometer resolution run for the time that they specify. So we call that the time shift, so that as the model shifts around in time depending on where the forecasters would like it to be.
Oh, did we lose Bill?
Oh, I was going to say, I think Bill went away here.
Bill,
Man,
I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk a little bit about that. This time ensemble, is this a similar approach to what other people call the time lagged? Like the HER there's a time lagged HER that essentially takes the same hour, the valid time forecast for like 12Z from all of the previous runs, and sort of you get an ensemble based on that. Is that essentially what you guys are doing?
So in this one, that's actually separate. We certainly do for our ensemble run. We do run also time lagged. So if essentially we take our 4 members and we essentially get an 8-member ensemble using the time lag piece of that. So we do have that, but the time shift one is actually a completely separate model run that we run that actually uses the GFS conditions for initialization, and so it can run all the way out into the future with a lot higher resolution over the region. So that's a separate model that we have on our site. We our website has kind of become a collection of different models. We have really our main one where it's the 4-member ensemble, and then we also time lag that so that we can do the 8-member ensemble. But then running as a separate model itself, we run the time shift model that goes out into the future with a high resolution, that 4 kilometers well out into the future. So we run that on our website, and we've kind of become just a clearinghouse for a bunch of different models. We also run a climate forecast system ensemble output. So we're taking the CFSV2 data, and then we're ensembling that. We're taking all of the deterministic runs for the last 5 days and ensembling all of that together to try to add some skill for forecasts out in that week 3 to 6 time period. You can you can at least pick up on some of the patterns coming in. It looks like a cold pattern coming forward. We also do some of that in the summer for severe weather probabilities. It gives you at least a heads up to some of that stuff, weeks out in advance. I know the Storm Prediction Center is doing something much the same. I know Greg Carvin's been doing some work on some pieces around that as well. So, not a whole lot of numbers behind that at this point, but we're trying to say, well, can we at least establish some skill, add some skill to that out in that 3 to 6 week category? That sets it apart from climatology at that point, hopefully.
So are you using your model's physics to do that, John, or are you using CFS physics?
Yep, that's all CFS v2, and then we're taking all the deterministic outputs from the CFS runs and then ensembling that. So.
Okay, pretty cool. So when you use your time shift, because you may have said this while I disappeared from the internet there for a second, what are you using for initial conditions when you time shift like that?
Yeah, so the time shift model is using the GFS initial conditions.
Okay.
And so cool. then it's handing it over to the WRF, 4 kilometer. We're using the setup that we use for member 1 of our ensemble to run that time out through whatever time period the forecasters have chosen.
So, John, you mentioned that the students are obviously benefiting, and we'll be expecting to see about 300 new meteorology students come out of your school system every year in about 5 or 6 years. But
yes, we'll have to find some jobs.
In any
for
case,
them.
the market will be flooded, and that's the more the merrier. But anyway, talk about the partnerships that you're doing with, sort of as almost a private weather forecasting firm here. Talk about how those relationships have formed, and is there any financial benefit to the school system for doing that, and how has that worked?
Well, we're looking at it as really trying to help the weather enterprise in the area as much as it is for us ourselves. We're saying if we can add more data to the decision-making process, even for the Weather Service as well as for private forecasting companies, I think that's going to be a good thing for all of us. That's both from savings for fuel use, but also we look at it for school closing stuff. That's if we can add better information to that decision to keep open or to close schools, that's really important. And what we can do there going forward. So, because we look at it for school closings, it's as important when we can make a decision to not close schools as it is important making a decision to close schools due to bad weather. So that's important to us to try to add information to that conversation.
Dr. Shepard, I know you've got a question for John.
Yeah, John, I've just tweeted this. I'm just so impressed with this program and what you're doing. I was somewhat familiar with it, but I hadn't really gotten the details of just how in depth it is. Actually, have a question. I mean, have you guys, written this up or published this in any education journals, any web journals, BAMs, anywhere? I mean, I just think it would be fascinating and useful for others to kind of know about this. And the second question is, I mean, are you doing a lot of the technical support, coding or whatnot, or do you have a team? I mean, I'm just curious because we run models. I've got grad students working with me on models. It's not trivial. And you're in an educated school system, so I can't imagine you have perhaps even some of the infrastructure that or support that we have in terms of a cadre of graduate students or even technical support.
Yeah, we've presented this for a couple years at just a couple small conferences, mostly at the Iowa Severe Storms and Doppler Radar Conference. We've done a couple things there. We have not taken it into much further than that, I guess, into peer review or any of those pieces. It's certainly something we'd love to do. One piece of it, when you look at one of the members, it does use urban canopy pieces in it as well, and some of the high resolution ground use pieces, which falls very nicely into what Tom is doing with his PhD work at the U of M, as he's looking at urban heat island pieces with that. So from that standpoint, I have a feeling some of that's going to end up over in his work as he's doing that over at the University of Minnesota. So, as far as the support of it and what happens with that, that's me and Tom on our spare time. So we've actually, over the last 2 years, are seeing somewhere about a 97.5% uptime as far as completion of all products. So we're really happy with that, and that goes to both the infrastructure that we're using at the Hopkins School District as well as, I guess, neither of us sleeping very much to make sure that everything keeps running well.
This question is for Rick Smith. Rick, Tom is obviously a PhD candidate at the University of Minnesota. How rare is that you have Weather Service forecasters or management folks that are actually pursuing advanced degrees while they're working?
I can't say for sure how rare it is across the Weather Service. I know there's quite a few out there. We actually have a meteorologist intern in our office right now that's pursuing his PhD. And he's the second intern that we've had in less than 5 years that's done that. Andy Taylor, who's now the SUE out in the Flagstaff office, started as an intern and was finishing his PhD. So it's done. People work on advanced degrees, but I can't imagine doing it. I mean, that's the shift work, the class work. I admire what Tom's doing and what everybody does that does that, because that's not easy. Neither one of those things is easy by themselves.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. One of my current doctoral students at the University of Georgia, Amanda Schroeder, some of you might know her, Rick. She's a former OU student that worked with Jeff and Ken Crawford out there.
Yep.
She's actually in the Weather Service office in Fort Worth right now, but she's pursuing it. So it is done, although I would agree it's not very common. I mean, I think it's more common in other agencies. I did my PhD work while I was at NASA. As John, I think I disappeared around the time John and me, I think we have left at the same time to go back to school. And I have another PhD student who's a full-time U.S. Forest Service meteorologist, but just a different environment in other agencies because, as you mentioned, NWS is shift work, so that can be a bit challenging.
Yep.
So, John, talk for a moment about the importance of social media and what you guys are doing.
Well, like I think everyone here on the panel talks about all the time, it's hard to be an effective communicator through all means if you're not really active in social media. And we are extremely active on Twitter, Facebook, and also Google+, with trying to talk about what's happening with the models. We certainly don't want to be those people putting that long-range, image of, 5,000 feet of snow somewhere, because we all can find those on Twitter when we want to. But we really want to talk about what we're seeing in the model, what maybe we're seeing either in the initialization or how it's going through, what's happening in the atmosphere. We try to do teachable pieces with that, as well as explaining the information out there, making very clear that, it's, trained meteorologists need to really look at this stuff if they're going to be going into it really in depth, but trying to get information out there. One of our largest days ever, as far as people going to our website, was 2 years ago. We had quite a wind event come right through the Twin Cities metro area on June 20 and 21, and where we had people in Minneapolis without power for almost 5 days, and we had posted a lot of stuff on social media that day. We got retweeted a lot, showing some of the composite radar images because we believe that they were good. We looked like they looked like they were going to verify, and they indeed did with that event. And so it was gratifying to see that. And social media is where people are seeing things. As James says, just about every week. It's not necessarily the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news that people are getting that information. They're getting it when it shows up on their phone, and that's how they're getting that information. So seeing that, whether it's through social media or something else, that's really what we're trying to do with the Hop Wharf, is also getting that out there and really seeing the interaction even with college students and high school students every once in a while too is pretty fun. I know we've worked a little bit with the students up at my alma mater, up at St. Cloud State University. They're starting to do some modeling up there as well. So they're, hopefully we'll be able to see some fun things coming out of there as well.
So, and I'm gonna ask one more question, James, than I put in the chat here, just because it occurred to me. You said you were running on 24 Intel cores. How's there? Are you doing this in the cloud?
This is in our VMware infrastructure, so it's virtualized. There's a virtualization layer in there on top of what we're doing in our data center. So, so it's on premise, but used through a virtualization layer, which makes both. I guess it makes it more complicated. It gives us some positive things, but it also certainly adds challenge to configuration of it when you're working in with that abstraction layer underneath what you're running.
John, I admire all the work, and you said all your free time. I can't imagine what that's like, and appreciate it. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other things that you're involved in, and some of the ways you and I are connected a little bit. You're very active and a big supporter of the Skywarn program, the Storm Spotter program, and also you and I work with the Spotter Network organization. Talk a little bit about your spotter interests and activities when it comes to Skywarn.
Yeah, I've been involved in Skywarn actually ever since back in college, and kind of got involved. That was something for me. It was always I needed something active to do with that. Something to see. For me, it was great to learn, all the background and the science piece of it, but kind of being a spotter and getting out in the field like that kind of made it more real for me, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been very active in Skywarn for many years, both in St. Cloud and then now down here in the Twin Cities area. Right now I'm the coordinator for all the volunteer coordinator for Skywarn operations out of Chanhassen. And also starting this last fall, I've become the president of SpotterNetwork.org. So really working with the national organization of spotters throughout the United States, and trying to help find a platform that all of us can use to get severe weather reports to the National Weather Service for warnings operations.
Well, I know Spotter Network is a big part of our operations. The Spotter Network reports get dumped automatically in NWS chat, and some people have a little heartburn with that, these unconfirmed, But, I've got a lot more confidence in the Spotter Network reports than I do in some other ones, because you can't. It takes a little bit of work to get a Spotter Network ID and to be able to log in and submit a report. So I think it's a good program, and I push it at my spotter talks, and I'm glad to see you more involved in it, and hopefully you can work on that in all your spare time, right?
Right, absolutely. That's, I think, that's one of the things, I guess, the social media side of that sees every once in a while. You do get some of those reports in that you kind of go, no, maybe not. Yeah. And I kind of think about that, and I always tell people, when you've been at one of the Weather Service offices during severe weather operations and you're answering the phone, the questionable report you see on Spotter Network is nothing compared to what some of those phone calls we've got. Yeah. Severe weather operations. So. And
that's not new to social media. I mean, we've been doing that for decades. So this is not a new issue at all. So.
Right.
Anyway, I think Spotter Network is going a long way to help with that. So thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Rick. And we're hoping to keep that going as we go forward here. We've certainly got some work to do there. Things are going very well, but we've certainly got some plans to help make things better there as well, and have some perhaps some instant feedback to spotters about their reports coming in the future. So we'll have to do that again in our free time, and do some of our programming wizardry to make that happen.
And John Scala, we know that Janice Bunning, the executive director of the NWA, is paying attention, because she just texted us that John to acknowledge that you were the NWA 2012 Walter J. Bennett Public Service Award winner for that Skywarn work. So thank you for that.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, that was.
Congratulations, John.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun to receive that award the same year after Mr. James Spann, and got to receive his award as well.
There you go.
That's right. But one last question from me, and then we'll see if anybody else on the panel has anything before James wraps. And I want you to talk for just a minute about the Minnesota Severe Storms Conference.
Oh, yeah. So the Minnesota Severe Storms Conference is a conference that I put on every spring for Skywarn storm spotters as well as storm chasers across the upper Midwest, kind of a regional conference. And we bring speakers in every year. We've had several speakers both from the Norman weather community as well as other areas of the country. And this year our speakers that we've announced so far is Dr. Harold Brooks from NSSL. He'll be talking about tornado climatology and some of the recent work that he's been a part of being published. And also we're going to have Skip Talbot, who's a storm chaser from down in Illinois, who I'm sure is familiar with most on the panel, as well as some of his work surrounding the El Reno tornado and kind of spotter and chaser safety as well. So we've got both of them already on the docket as far as speaking this year at the workshop and the conference, and that's going to be on April 11th. We have a great relationship with the University of St. Thomas Applied Mathematics Department, where we sponsor it with them, and it's held at the University of St. Thomas Minneapolis campus, and this year will be on April 11th. So if anybody's interested in that, you can visit us at mnscc.org. So Minnesota Severe Storms Conference.org.
All right, guys. You can see what I'm doing. I'm sitting here.
You're watching television. Yeah.
You're not
watching
paying
Blizzard
attention.
coverage. Well, no, Brian's gone, so I'm sitting there having to do this website and the show notes and all this kind of stuff. And I've got on the coverage of the Blizzard. I'm sure this is highly illegal. We'll probably get pulled off YouTube for this, but now I've got up WCVB, which is the ABC channel in Boston, and to me, I joke about this, but the only way I will get better is to watch others, and others that are doing a good job and get some ideas. So I'm just looking at what they're doing up there. But we did a 30 minutes on the storm, but let's take a few minutes here. We'll just kind of this will be the National Weather Roundup. That the weather nationally is the blizzard up in the Northeast, and looks like our friends in Boston are getting really hammered. And the big question I think for most of us it's New York City. And Dr. Shepard, you had some concern that maybe the amounts in New York City would not be quite as great as forecast, huh?
Yeah, but I'm looking at some really nice radar data that Victor Gensini out at the College of DuPage, I know he's listening in right now. They're producing some nice radar loops, so I'll have that up right now. There's a nice band. By the way, I try to get out of the habit of using the word nice when I'm describing something in weather. I know we all do it, but there's a decent band that's about to rotate through. It looks like it'd be a 3 to 4 inch per hour band, so looks like they are picking up in activity. I mean, I think I've never doubted that they were going to get some good snow totals. It remains to be seen whether in the minds of some there in New York City they'll get enough to justify some of these sort of unprecedented steps that we've heard about, closing the subways, the bus systems, and whatnot. I think that could be a story tomorrow. But having said that, I mean, I think that this is certainly an event that's going to be a problem for Boston. Parts of Connecticut and Rhode Island. Certainly, I think our community, picked up on this event and did its due diligence and warning. So even though there may or may not be Monday morning quarterbacking, I think, I know I stand ready to support our community whenever someone challenges or when some politician says we didn't know about this, or when they say, well, we knew about it and they overhyped it. So, I mean, I think we have to push back, and as you know, I do push back. I push back when, there was some discussion about whether our event here in Atlanta last year was forecast. I pushed back on Weather Geeks a couple of weeks ago when the New York governor said that they didn't know about the lake effect snow at the level of severity. So we'll see how this plays out. But there is a significant band about to rotate. I just tweeted that link. There's some really good radar data that Victor and his folks at DuPage are sharing.
Hey, let me ask our East Coast correspondents here, Aubrey and John and Nate. What's an analog? Give me an analog to this storm.
Oh, I wouldn't even know, and I haven't had a chance to look up one. But I grew up in the blizzard of '93 and '96, and I was in Connecticut during those years. Granted, I was a weedless one, and we went to school the next day.
Uphill both ways in the snow, I'm sure. Bare feet.
We had a delay or something, but I remember going to school for both those major storms.
I want to thank Aubrey for making me feel really, really old.
Oh, come on! It's not like I'm fresh out of college. I'm
growing up during the blizzard of '93. Excuse me. There's a plot waiting for me somewhere. I've got to go.
I was over 10. I was at least.
You know my line. You know my line. I have underwear older than her. Which
at least I was an 80. I was an 80s child, not like some of these kids. Not like my husband who grew up in the 90s.
You're not helping, Aubrey.
No. You're digging a deeper hole. It's just not.
All right, I'll shut it.
So John, what's a good analog to this storm? You got one?
Yeah, actually, what comes to mind is the 1888 Great White Hurricane.
I missed that one.
He was,
You remember
James was
that?
around for
James,
that.
you were around for that. You and your underwear back in the 1800s,
Yeah, I was
Where's
working with my
JP?
friend Marconi, just getting on the radio back then. Yeah.
I can't believe I missed that
It's on
one.
the screen right now. It's just the latest radar composite from the Northeast, and you can see that band that Marshall's talking about moving across Long Island. That's an impressive band.
I'm trying to get a hold of my sister. She's in Suffolk County, which is kind of in central on the western side of Long Island, and they had about 4 to 5 inches about an hour ago. So
Okay.
I haven't heard any updates yet.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break here. We're going to pause for Professor Peters, and then we're going to come back with Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report. We'll have picks of the week. We got Nate's news. We got all kind of stuff going on here. So stick around as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
The change in wind direction and wind speed with height provides clues to the nature of the synoptic temperature advection. The change of wind with height is broken into two groups, veering and backing. A clockwise turning of the wind with height is termed veering. Winds turn from southeasterly near the surface to westerly aloft in a veering situation. A veering wind is associated with warm air advection. The strength of the warm air advection depends on the strength of the wind and the amount of veering with height. If wind is strong and southerly at the surface and from the west at 700 millibars, through time the low levels of the atmosphere will warm while the upper levels may see little temperature change. This will cause instability, and the degree of instability in the low levels will depend on the amount of thermal advection and the amount of veering from the surface to mid-levels. A veering wind profile is common in the warm sector of a mid-latitude cyclone. The wind will veer with height in the vicinity of a warm front. Before a warm front passage, it is common for the wind to be light northerly, shift to the east, then shift to a southerly direction. When the wind turns counterclockwise with height, it is termed a backing wind. A backing wind is associated with cold fronts. Behind a cold front, wind will be from a northerly direction, then shift counterclockwise to a westerly direction with height. Keep in mind that the wind in the mid and upper levels usually have a more westerly component than an easterly component due to the prevailing planetary scale westerlies. A backing wind is associated with cold air advection. A backing wind in the low levels of the atmosphere is favorable for synoptic scale sinking motion. Most rain and thunderstorms are ahead of cold fronts. Precipitation behind cold fronts is generally lighter or lacking altogether in most situations. There is a lot to keep in mind when dealing with the three-dimensional nature of the atmosphere. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, I'm Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook for the week of January 26th. This week marks the 11th anniversary of the landing of the golf cart-sized Mars exploration rover Opportunity. Originally planned for just 90 sols or Mars days, Opportunity reached Sol 3913 today, or about 43.5 times its intended lifespan. That's a lot in rover years. Last summer, Oppie set the off-Earth driving record a little over 25 miles. This surpassed the Soviet Union's 70s-era Lukanod rover. Today, her odometer stands just a few hundred yards shy of 26 miles. Opportunity is feeling her age, though. In recent years, the team that commands her from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, has dealt with a number of problems. A robotic arm that didn't want to stow, worn gears, heaters that wouldn't turn off, and dust storm after dust storm. Each time, though, they find a workaround and keep that little rover rolling. When the right front wheel developed a problem, the team feared that it might seize up, significantly limiting the mobility of the rover. The problem was solved by doing a 180. They drove backwards for a little while, and that was sufficient to redistribute lubricants in the wheel's gearbox. Most recently, Oppie developed a bout of amnesia when her flash memory, which is not unlike what we have in USB drives or an SSD drive in a laptop, developed a problem. The last bank of flash memory refused to cooperate, causing the rover to reboot repeatedly. The engineers at JPL developed a solution and tested it out on Oppie's Earthbound twin. JPL engineers have been coming up with creative solutions to squeeze more life out of these spacecraft for years. Some workarounds even become a part of the daily routine. I recently sat in on Opportunity's daily planning meeting. The rover's plan included what the team kept calling a salute. Mission manager Mike Siebert leaned over during the meeting and explained that the problems with stowage of the robotic arm made it necessary to raise that arm to a vertical position at least once a day, allowing them to capture images for navigation purposes. Well, we salute you too, Opportunity. Here's to 11 more years of roaming Mars and sending back great science. You can learn more about Opportunity and her big sister rover, Curiosity, at mars.jpl.nasa.gov.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
That's your cue.
That's me. Sorry.
Don't tell us you don't have any mail to talk about. You haven't been here in like a year.
So things have been going on. Yeah, sorry, I was listening to the national news. But no, unfortunately, I've been called on like the morning show. And I would much rather be here than the morning show. All right, so let's see if I can get through some of this. Peter Buckner sent in a listener survey response, and Peter is a private pilot who needs to learn more about the weather. So thank you, Peter, for sending in your comments. We appreciate those. And let's see, he was also looking forward to the next show. Thoroughly enjoyed the show with all of its variety and behind-the-scenes look at weather forecasting and the interface with the general public. And I know the pilot show was very, very big, and I'm very upset that I was not able to be there for that show. Also, a couple of words.
It was pretty awesome. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I know, and I was very, very upset that I had to be in bed. I know the term "sleep when you're dead." Usually, I'm all for that, but I needed some sleep last week. It was last week, right? It was last Monday. Yeah, that's when I got called in last minute. The weeks are smushing together. We got a nice email today from our lovely friend Mary Alice in Hawaii. Also,
this is the greatest email I think in WeatherBrains.
I love this. Now, meanwhile, you have to think Mary Alice also sent us a picture of herself when she got the WeatherBrains. She didn't just buy the shirt; she bought the hoodie in Hawaii, and she's sporting our WeatherBrains hoodie in Hawaii.
And she's wearing it today.
But wait, she's in sweats and socks because it's 71 degrees inside. Mary Alice, I just want to let you know that I'm in Virginia. We had 1.5 inches of snow today, and my house is 64 degrees right now. We keep it nice and cool in here in Virginia. So, Kevin, your pick this week has to be Funny or Die weather app. Thanks for sharing it on your blog. And she disagrees with the top weather stories from Greg Carvin, especially when the non-event made a list. They had 5 tropical systems affecting the islands this year. Hurricane Iselle hit the big island of Hawaii, and the radar was astounding. And she shared the video. So thank you, Mary Alice, for sporting your hoodie when we would all be dying to see 71 degrees inside or outside.
I just love how we get an email from somebody in Hawaii taking us to task not only for leaving Hawaii out, taking Greg Carvin to task, and then taking us to task for complaining about it.
I love her.
That made my day. I thank you for emailing.
She's been doing that for about 7 or 8 years now.
I love it. And let's see. This one is from Jeff Wilcox. And I apologize because I haven't gone through all the emails yet because I'm so behind at work. So thank you for Jeff Wilcox for sending in a couple of your emails. I know we're trying to get to a couple of you. And let's see. This one, 110. How long ago was this? Steve the Jazz Man sent us an email. Author uses animals to teach children about the weather by Stan Finger, the Wichita Eagle. So I know there's a couple of good children's books, and I like to post children's websites every once in a while because I know they like to learn about the weather. And of course, Susie Grant, my good friend Susie Grant, who is also in Virginia, who sends in listening surveys all the time, and she'll send me messages on my Facebook page. So Susie, thank you very much for sending in your comments. And Daniel Lucas, always famous for sending in some news nuggets for Nate. So if you have an email, a guest suggestion, that you would like to send us, go ahead and send it to email@weatherbrains.com. And don't forget, you can follow us on the Twitter and the Facebook. Just search for WeatherBrains, and then we are also on there individually. So pick your favorite or pick all of us, and we would love to have you follow us.
All right, so thank you, Aubrey. So for those watching, if you guys,
oh no!
So what I'm showing, CNN is on the streets of Manhattan tonight in the Blizzard mobile, and they've got a guy in here. Looks like he's been smoking weed or something. Look at this guy.
I gotta follow up Chris DeLuca, who's a we pull him up. He's with the Chicago Sun-Times, deputy managing editor. Tweeted, and I quote, "CNN's Blizzard Mobile, a specially equipped weather vehicle," says Don Lemon from CNN, "was just passed by a Toyota Prius."
Yeah, what's the scoop on the guy in the Blizzard Mobile?
I mean, who is this guy? Is that his Oh man, I'm sorry.
I'm dying over here.
But look, it must be important. It says breaking news.
Now, Kevin, why did you have to go ruining my moment? What's up with that?
Harshen your buzz there?
Oh.
Someone caught a picture of the outside of the Blizzard Mobile.
Wait a minute.
There we go.
Rick's got his screen. Great. So somebody's got a picture.
You made me spit out my chair.
The people listening to the show have no idea what we're talking about. So Rick has an image of the outside of the Blizzard Mobile.
The Dairy Queen Blizzard Mobile.
Blizzard logo.
I think it's an Oreo Blizzard too.
But before this whole show goes down the tubes, I'm going to see if Nate can get us out of the ditch. So Nate, go ahead.
Oh, you're killing me. All right, I got a little bit of news. I got 3 articles of news tonight. Number 1 from the New Orleans Times-Picayune. I love the Times-Picayune. I just love that name. It's very cool. Headline: New Orleans area hurricane levee design should be reanalyzed by 2018. You remember after Katrina, when the levees failed, they went back, Army Corps engineers went back in and redesigned some of the levees. Well, now they're saying that they need to have those reevaluated based on a couple of things, most notably subsidence. They have an improved understanding of how the radar, or how the ground underneath those is subsiding and potentially causing weaknesses down the road. They don't expect for at least the next 50 years that they're going to have a problem maintaining the 100-year floodplain design standard of the levees, but that's something that they need to keep an eye on, or the Army Corps of Engineers saying they need to keep an eye on going forward, and they're recommending that it get reviewed fairly regularly, every 10 years or so, at a cost of $10 to $20 million for that study. So that's going to be expensive and something we'll need to keep an eye on as New Orleans continues to grow after trying to get back to its pre-Katrina levels. It still hasn't gotten there yet, and continuing to grow. All right, article in Nature reported by the Washington Post, Rachel Feltman, talking about petrichor. That's a great word. If you've ever been outside after it rains, you know the smell of a summer shower. Well, that is petrichor. It actually has a name. And folks at MIT have figured out, using some very, very slow motion, what am I looking for here? Super slow motion photography, have been able to figure out, they think, why petrichor happens. And you get these little small raindrops, they fall into the ground and then kick up little aerosols, little bits of the essential oils and little bits of dust, and that's what we think petrichor is. A really interesting article on the Washington Post about that. And finally, and I want to involve Marshall in this without, I don't want us to get us too far afield, but I'm sure Marshall's going to have a comment comment about my closing comment on this article. But of course, about a week and a half ago, NOAA, NASA concluded that 2014 was this is the catch, most likely the warmest year on record. And figuring out exactly what that most likely stuff means. And I've read through it, and I understand where it makes sense. The UK folks, on the other hand, had said, oh no, it's a tie with 2010 based on their particular data set. So it's going to be interesting to see. But the article I'm looking at is a summary of different scientists' opinions on the NASA NOAA announcement of 2014 being most likely the warmest year on record globally. And a couple of things that really struck me, and you've got Marshall's actually quoted in this article, Jeff Masters from Weather Underground, Carrie Emanuel from MIT, a number of really sort of luminary folks here. And it's a really interesting, I think, look at the breadth of reaction to this. And I would say, I'm just going to put this out there, I think we chose the wrong headline here. The 2014, whether it's the hottest year on record, where it's the most likely it's the hottest year, there are so many holes that folks who want to poke holes in the global warming conversation, there's so many ways for that to happen. I think we chose the wrong headline here. I think the better headline, even though I don't argue factually with any of that, the better headline on our end I think might have been, we've had 3 or 4 of the hottest years since 1995 or 1998, and that does something. It does a couple things. And it's a stronger argument. It also gets us around and something that Carrie Emanuel pointed out in his quote in the article, it gets us around the focusing on a single year thing. If global warming is a thing, it's more than just one event. It's more than, and we're going to have people saying that this snowstorm was potentially caused by, enhanced by global warming. Okay, that's fine, but we need to get past, in my opinion, we need to get past this single event stuff and let's look at the pattern and reinforce that. And Marshall, you're nodding. I want your take on that because I know you're quoted in the article and you've been on Twitter about this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was quoted in the article based on, I guess they used the one about if you're less than 29 years of age, then you haven't lived in a cooler than the 20th century average month. But yeah, as you know, on Twitter, I basically said, we missed the point completely by focusing on more. I mean, I think the media likes that kind of stuff, but the reality is, that's like arguing the point, LeBron James or Michael Jordan, who's better. I mean, they're both near the top, but it doesn't really matter. They're both at the top of their game, and I think that's the message that got lost in that discussion, and it gave an opening, for a lot of the sort of chatter that came out there. It still doesn't, sort of kill the point that, at least on record, it was one of the warmer years. Yes, have we seen warmer years? Climate change is naturally dinghy. Yes, when dinosaurs were around and when there were alligators at the Arctic, it was much warmer. It was 20 feet more. Sea level was 20 foot higher as well. So we can't. There are different discussions. That's probably a different show. But just yesterday yesterday on Weather Geeks, we had Roger Pilkey Sr., who tends to, in some people's eyes, sort of skew on the skeptic side at times of this, but Roger's someone who I respect very heavily. Invited him on the show along with David Titley, and I think Roger makes some good points here. We've got to kind of talk. He did acknowledge that there's an anthropogenic contribution, but he says we've got to put it in a holistic discussion, and I agree with that. We've got to frame the conversation the right way, otherwise you get the frenzy in the media circus that we had after that announcement. So I completely agree with you on that, Nate.
And I think too, and my argument isn't, there was one comment, I think I was talking with Andrew Friedman from Mashable on Twitter about this, and he said, well, that's the story that the media picked up, and that's true, but largely that's because that's the headline that we put in the press release. I mean, that's the headline that was out there, and so we've sort of guided him in that direction, and if that's the headline we're going to choose, that 2014 is the hottest year, then if 2015 winds up being not as hot, then we have to answer that. Whereas if we're able to talk about, it's global warming isn't just about one year; it's more than just one event. If this is happening, if it's a thing, then it's a thing that's a long-term pattern, and that's something that I think we need, as communicators, need to do a better job about pointing out and reinforcing it with folks. And I know that Deke Arndt from NCDC will probably take me to task over this, but I think, this is an ongoing challenge, and we can't just simply drop headlines and expect people to think what we want them to think. That's not how it works. And John, you had a comment. You were going to jump in?
No, yeah, that's a problem with headlines. You're quantifying a subject matter with a few words, and you're trying to gather attention in doing so. I just think that's ripe for a problem. And earlier on my Facebook post, just to follow up the discussion, what we're talking about here, I was listing from the Weather Service office in Upton the top 10 single storm snowfalls in New York City. Interestingly enough, 6 of the top 10 have occurred since 1996. And we've had reliable records in New York City since 1872. So why have the 6 of the top 10 occurred just in the last 18 years?
Yeah, I wanted to just quickly follow up on the story you did about MIT too, Nate, about the raindrops dispersing aerosols. But before I do that, I think the other thing is this illustrates, which is something that I say all the time, which is the American public has about a 6th to 8th grade level science, math, and statistics understanding. So I think one of the things that also tripped up the public is that in that release, they kind of issued some sort of probabilities or uncertainties, or if you will, on that amount too. And I think that, I think scientifically that's the right thing to do. But whenever we start talking uncertainties to the public, it makes it sound like we're not sure, we don't know. So I think scientists have to communicate that a little better, because people hear uncertainty or hear sort of those types of things and interpret it very differently than how a scientist interprets a range or uncertainty. But quickly, we published some work a couple of years ago with folks at Emory University showing that after thunderstorms, there's an uptick in asthma occurrence and hospitalization and emergency room rate from after thunderstorms. We call it thunderstorm asthma. We published it in a very well-known medical journal called Thorax. And we weren't really sure of the mechanisms. We just saw that it was happening. And so this new MIT study that you just mentioned may have been the missing link for us, because what we're finding is that after rainfall, some of these pollens that are sort of being dispersed as these raindrops are breaking apart, they get dispersed by the outflow boundaries and the gust fronts, and that may be the missing link to why you see this uptick in asthma response after thunderstorms. It's counterintuitive to people, but the hypothesis that we were leading with is that it was related to NOx production from lightning, NOx, nitrogen oxides, but it may now be we're going to start looking into whether this aerosol dispersion mechanism is at play. So I just wanted to follow up on that.
Very, very cool stuff. Thanks, Marshall. And James, hand it back to you. If you have any, hold on. If we have any news, if you have any news, send it to me. Email at weatherbrains.com. Find me on Twitter. Blah 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 blah. James, back to you.
Blah blah blah. Okay, let's roll the fog bank with Skydaver. Go, Skydaver.
Initiating startup sequence. Hello, everyone. Let's get this started. I'm going to use the Wayback Machine to give a little background on how the fog bank came about. This is from WeatherBrains episode 267, Pizza in the Cold.
Skydaver, we want you to record 5 picks of the week for an upcoming episode. How's that?
Google Earth Blog had a post about showing tornado damage using the historical imagery feature in Google Earth. Jason Samenow posted at Capital Weather Gang with lightning in the eye of Cyclone Bansi from the International Space Station. Earth Science Picture of the Day has Comet Lovejoy photos, which are beautiful. And finally, the NOAA Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research has an article on CalWater 2015, an investigation into atmospheric rivers. Thanks for listening. Skydaver out. Initiating shutdown sequence.
That was cool. So Skydaver I thought Kevin said that live for a minute, but no, that was Kevin's original charge to Skydaver to get those picks of the week. So that's been a great segment. His picks are always the best. I'm making my pick, the Rick Smith things that Oklahomans should know during snow forecast, which applies to everybody. So let's go around the horn here, and let's see if Bill Murray has a pick of the week. Bill?
Yeah, James, I'm going to recycle the one that I think I sent to Brian last week, but I think it's very appropriate. That's INSEP's Ensemble Model Training page, and I've just stuck it in the in the chat there so you can grab it, and I think that's really appropriate given our discussion on modeling tonight.
Okay, and again, Brian is out, so I'm having to do the website, which means it will be a total disaster, but I will get the picks of the week up on here. All right, so let's go to Aubrey Urbanowitz. Aubrey?
Well, I just thought, we're in the middle of a monster epic blizzard that's affecting millions. At what point is this going to affect a billion? I'm just curious. At what, I mean,
when it goes to India.
It's all millions. I think we should just go ahead and declare it it started as a flipper, which started in a different country, and it affected thousands and thousands and millions of people. I think we could probably quantify a billion, couldn't we?
Billions and billions.
We can say whatever we want to.
Anyways, okay. So it's winter. It's cold. I have an article from WeatherWise magazine about the ITCZ. Just to give you a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
I like it. A tropical pick in the middle of winter. The contrarian.
No. This is also because my in-laws had invited us to go to Cabo, leaving today, and we could not. My husband and I could not go because he's in the master's program, and sweep starts in like 3 days. So.
Great.
Disappointed.
Marshall Shepard, your pick is mesmerizing. I put that link in my browser. I'm just hypnotized.
Yeah, it is.
Explain what this is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I go to this site all the time, and I'm not actually exactly sure who actually is behind it, but really nice site that compiles national wind measurements and produces these really amazing streamlined type animations. And the one that I just tweeted and posted actually shows the current blizzard, and you can really see this thing wrapping up nicely. So I just tweeted it out there. I should have actually put the hashtag WeatherBrains, but it's just an amazing, and they don't just do this for these big events. You can go to that website anytime and look at the streamlines for any given day, or the airflow, the trajectories, and whatnot. So.
Yeah, for those people that are happening to be watching, you can see that up on the screen here now. But yeah, that is just, like you, I've seen this a lot of times. But during events like this, it just becomes fascinating. So that's way too cool. All right, let's see if Kevin Selly's got a pick of the week.
I do, and this is actually courtesy of Nate, because he was the one that I think surfaced it first, but he's not going to use it, so I'm going to take it from him. And it is a new app from the company called Funny or Die, which was co-founded by Will Ferrell, the actor. And it is a completely functioning, I believe, nice-looking weather app, and I wrote a little bit about this on the Digital Meteorologist blog, so you can find the link there, or you can find it on the show notes at weatherbrains.com. I think it's going to be very successful because the little hook, other than just regular weather information, and it's got the forecast and the hourly and all that kind of stuff, is it's got a little comedy bit. Now, I will warn you, some of these are not safe for work. They are going pretty far out. Yeah, they have been going out, and I've seen the F word in one of them.
Whoa, hello.
I know, and
Frost.
And also breaking news in some of. No, but they're I think it's going to hit a certain market that likes that kind of stuff, and it's just another thing that takes away from the traditional weather outlets, taking little pieces here and there. But I also think it's really important. This is what I wrote about on the blog, was that it is finally allowing or enabling a little injection of personality into a mobile weather app, as opposed to what James refers to as the crap apps, which are mostly model data, or there's no input from the humans. And those are the points I made on the Digital Meteorologist blog, and I think they're going to get some traction with it, because at the end of the day, I really believe this, as the TV model changes and fades, one of the things that we have left is some injection of personality. And I don't mean just comedy, but I mean personality and connection and humanness is one of the few things that us television broadcasters have left, and we're being left out in the cold by the companies who will not enable this. And so I think it's important, it's a benchmark that these guys have done that.
We can beat the crap apps.
I like the weather fact of the day on here, Kevin. Did you read this?
It keeps changing. Tell us the current one.
The humidity of water is extremely high.
Yeah.
You learn a lot with that app.
Deep Thoughts by John Scala.
You guys gonna vote on that?
By the way, Kevin, is that your TV suit you're going to wear there?
Pardon?
Is that your TV suit you got on there?
No, I have a whole completely different suit that I'm going to wear. This is my WeatherBrains suit.
There you go.
Hey, I have a question because I have to go too. Like,
too bad they didn't have it in your own size.
Let me run down the panel. Yeah, I got this bit of information some time ago, but I've never asked you guys. I'm going to go down the line. Aubrey first. What percentage of a given market do you think is on Twitter? Give me a number.
For my market, probably like 15.
How much?
For my market, I know I would say probably about 15. But
okay,
yeah.
Bill, what do you say?
I say 3%.
3%. James, what do you say?
11%.
11. John?
13.
13%. John?
We got it surrounded.
Yeah, probably somewhere right around there.
Marshall?
I'd say about 10.
10. Nate?
I'm going to say 12 because the Seahawks and Russell Wilson are going to win everything on Sunday.
Oh, make me ill.
Rick, what do you think, Rick?
9 to 10, somewhere in there.
That's interesting. I thought you guys would guess a little higher. The number that I was told by a consultant and a researcher at Pointer was about 15%.
Wow.
Oh,
Which I think is interesting because, it's not a really big number, especially in comparison to the hype that it gets, but it is not an insignificant number when you're dealing with people in your market. So I thought that was interesting.
That is.
And it's amazing because you can do so much more with Twitter than you can with Facebook, I think.
Yeah.
Boy, look at the time. Let's see if I can do this. Nate, what's your pick of the week?
Pick of the week is the third conference on weather warnings and communication. Abstract deadline coming in about 3 weeks, and it's going to be here in Raleigh the second full week of June. And I'm telling you, I'm going to pull a George Zimmer. It's going to be awesome. I guarantee it.
Ooh.
So abstracts in, get them in quickly. I've been talking with Janice Dean from Fox News. She's pulling together I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but she's pulling together a blockbuster panel for this, and we've got a couple other things. It's really coming together very well, especially early. And if you've ever chaired an AMS conference, you know that people are just really. They don't want to turn in anything until the deadline, and then we have to move the deadline to get more things or whatever. People are turning stuff in already. We're having great conversations. This is going to be an awesome, awesome conference.
Nate's about to pee in his pants. He's so excited. Wow.
I am too from the cheer line.
I'm gonna sign up right now.
Do it.
Hey, speaking of that, Nate, I've got to go do some television. So you've got, let's see, I know Rick and
John. Yeah,
we got to do John and whoever else hadn't done a pick, but I got to go do some news. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Rick Smith, pick of the week, sir.
My pick of the week is a very cool opportunity that's coming up. It's a partnership between the Storm Prediction Center and the University of Oklahoma student chapter of the AMS. They're going to be starting a tornado forecasting workshop series. Rich Thompson, who's one of the veteran lead forecasters over at our neighbors at the SPC, it's going to be an hour and a half starting every Tuesday night starting February 3rd, every Tuesday night from 7:30 to 9 Central Time. It's going to stream live. It's also going to be recorded, and you can view it anytime on YouTube. They're getting into sounding analysis, synoptic meteorology, vertical shear, lift, conceptual models, tornado parameter climatology. This is like a dream for weather geeks if you're into severe weather, and we're going to really be pushing this and recommending people. We have people that want advanced topics in our spotter training classes. This is going to address a lot of that. So again, starting February 3rd, and we'll have the information up on the website.
And kudos to the folks at SPC and the students at OU for pulling that together. That's pretty slick.
Very cool.
So we've already talked to Marshall, talked to Kevin, John Scala. We'll start with you. Have we hit your pick of the week yet?
No, we didn't, Nate. And I'm going to keep with the winter theme. 4 years ago today was a major blizzard again in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. January 26, 27, 2011. So my pick is a summary article written by Dave Hamrick of HPC talking about this storm.
Very cool. And John, how do you pronounce your last name? I want to be sure I get it correct.
It's wetter.
Wetter,
yep.
Because
opposite of drier. Yep.
Because in German,
better
is weather, and
exactly.
I think it's incredibly appropriate. So Herr John Wetter, was ist Ihr Pick of the Week, sir?
Each night, no wait, I don't want to try to pronounce that right now. I'm gonna, let's see, other than the obvious ones like hopwharf.info, where people can go learn about the things that we're looking at, the abstracts, also the posting just open for the Iowa Severe Storms and Doppler Radar Conference with Central Iowa NWA.
Also an excellent radar conference and severe storms conference.
So I know we'll be down there. I have a feeling there will be a Hopworth submission at the conference again this year. So we'll be taking a look at that. So that would be my pick of the week, and hopefully we'll see everybody there in Central Iowa as well.
Very good. And Bill, we got your pick of the week already, or do we need to get you?
We did, but I have. I need the address of the Cheerwine Company, Nate. Could you please look that up for me?
Yes,
I just opened it and it ruined my carpet. And Aubrey's idea did not work. So anyway.
But
I'll be sending a bill.
The real question, Bill, is how does it taste?
Oh, it's heavenly. There's no question. And I've given up on that diet Cheerwine thing.
No. Never ever drink diet anything. Are you kidding me? The closest way to sell sucralose and the artificial sugar, don't even get me started.
Well, I'm going to be dead at 54 if that's the case, Aubrey. But anyway,
Cheerwine,
the real deal.
Is good for you.
Yeah, no question.
Bill, you're already 56. How can you be dead at? I'm just kidding.
I just turned 53 yesterday. That's my point.
All right, Bill. What do we have coming up? I know we've been talking.
Nobody. We don't have any guests. We're done. We've already talked to everybody in the Weather Enterprise. It's over. There are no more guests. So so all you people that are writing in, that's great. No more guests. We're not having any more guests from now on.
Yes. No, we've got a fantastic.
And we have a great college show next week. That's going to be a lot of fun, and we've got some other outstanding guests coming up in future weeks. And we have a new brainstorm list that is just off the scale. So get ready for the ninth year of WeatherBrains to be absolutely stunning.
Cool. And if you'd like to suggest someone for a guest, please let us know. Or if you want to send us an email to critique Greg Carbon's top 10 weather and tell us that you're shivering at 71 degrees. By the way, in Mary Alice's defense, there's no heat. Usually Hawaii, you don't have heat, and the windows were propped open, so cut our little slack. But we really appreciate the email. If you'd like to send us an email, and you can do that email, email at weatherbrains.com. You can post on Twitter or Facebook or Google+. We are WeatherBrains on all of those venues, and we certainly would appreciate hearing from you, and you might even have your email read here. You go to weatherbrains.com, sign up for our newsletter. Skywritings, this is a new thing. Brian Peters is leading this up, but we're all contributing to it once a weekly-ish newsletter from all of your friends here at WeatherBrains. And you got to sign up because there may be some, how shall we say, opportunities that come along for newsletter subscribers. We'll just leave it at that. You can read into that what you want. You're probably right. And so certainly sign up for that. Plus, especially if you're from North Carolina, which is my home state, we have sort of an informal contest going on. And Oklahoma and Alabama are basically running away with it. But, poor John Scala's got like 3 people in Pennsylvania signed up. So in Pennsylvania, sign up. And if you're from here in North Carolina, we'd certainly love to have you sign up for that newsletter. But anywhere in the fruited plain or internationally. And by the way, it does require you to fill in a zip code, a U.S. zip code. If you're coming in from across the pond, as it were, or wherever else, just use 99999, or in aviation speak, 9er, because that's just fun to say, and type that in as your zip code, and it'll let you sign up. Just need your email address. We're not going to sell it to anybody. We're not going to spam you. We just want to, stay connected with you. So check that out.
Nate, I can't find on the website where you sign up for it. Am I missing something?
It's on there, but it's not as obvious, perhaps, as it should be.
Yeah, we'll work on making that obvious. In the meantime, if you Google WeatherBrains Skywritings, it will show up there, and I'll send James a note and have him post a link to that in the show notes for this, and we'll probably just start including that in our boilerplate for every week. So this is WeatherBrains. In case you have lost track of time for the last 2 hours and 3 minutes, this is all about the Weather Netcast. We typically report it live on Monday nights, starting at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern Time, and we talk weather. That's what we do. It's who we are. It's what we do, and we certainly would appreciate your listening and tuning in. If you have iTunes comments, you post them there. You can find us on iTunes, find us on Stitcher, you can find us everywhere else, and we certainly love to hear from you. Just shoot us an email and let us know what you think, good, bad, or ugly. With that, I am Nate Johnson. Thanks for listening. Good night, and God bless.
Good show.
Great
Good
show.
show. Very good show.
That's
Thanks,
two in
everyone.
a row that have been really, really fun to do. So, John, thanks for being with us. It's the guest that
thank
make
you,
it rock. John and Marshall. Appreciate it.
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank
you joining us, Dr. Shepard.
No problem.
Always.
Yep.
Y'all take care. We'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
Guys.
All right, thank you, Nate.
See ya.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Look at all these people still watching. I'm going to turn this off a little early. We were very, very busy here. I got to get up at like, let's see, 4:15 tomorrow because I have a function. I have to be there at 7:30, so I have to do all the production very early. So I'm going to try and save some time here. Thank you guys for watching. That was a great show. Enjoyed it. I love the cast. Had some good laughs, great content. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching, and God bless all of you. Bye-bye.